Hey there. So I want to tell you a little story about the other day. I was at work, cashiering in the garden center, and this time of year, late summer, absolutely nobody shops garden center. Everyone's plants are already planted. All their mulch is already down. It's not time for the pumpkins and hay bales for the autumn yet, so it's just in that in-between time where you're lucky to get 2 or 3 guests per hour. So I had a lot of time on my hands, twiddle my thumbs, or just do whatever. So I started looking at the fountains that we have on display there, and one of them has sitting in it one of those foggers. It's something that can just float in your fountain, and it takes the water and turns it into steam. And when you've got nothing else to do, it's pretty entertaining to just sit and watch the steam roll off. And it is kind of neat, different breezes or different elements around it make it drift or waft in different directions and different curls and wisps and things like that. And so I was mesmerized for 2 minutes watching the smoke go by. It was kind of neat. But then I started thinking about that verse in James chapter 4 verse 14. Says, "Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away." And I really started thinking about that. I'm like, you know what? That's so true. I've been standing here for 2, 3 minutes, and the smoke, while it continues to billow continually, really each little bit of it is only there for a short while. And so I tried to estimate exactly how long each particle remains, or each cluster of smoke or fog sticks around before dissipating into the atmosphere where I couldn't see it anymore. And it really only lasted about 2 seconds. And I thought, that's really not very long at all. If James is writing and compares our entire lifespan, maybe 70, 80 years, to a mere 2 seconds, that's pretty significant. And so I started thinking about how that compares to eternity. Because we are promised in this life, based on whether or not we've accepted God's salvation plan or not, we will spend an eternity in a life hereafter, either in heaven or hell. And it really got me thinking how immense the difference is between 2 seconds and eternity. So I started to think of what I could compare to eternity, and I started thinking, okay, just how long have I worked at this job? I've been there a little over 5.5 years, and so I calculated that in terms of seconds. If 2 seconds represents one lifetime, I've been working there for approximately 90 billion lifetimes. Now, if you put that in terms of an 80-year lifespan, that's I think it was 7.2 trillion years, give or take, that I've been working at that job. And that's not even my entire lifespan. You multiply that by 4 or 5 to get my age, how long I've been alive, and you really start to get some huge numbers. And when you think about what this really means for us today, is that people spend so much time and effort investing into those 2 seconds and not investing in the 90 billion lifetimes. We spend so much time making sure that this 2 seconds we have a really nice life, a good family, a nice career. We set up a lot of security in this lifespan and ignore the eternity. Or some people put God off and say, God, I'll maybe later sometime. I want to live it up with my partying, my drugs, my beer, whatever, my riotous living, because you only get one life, right? That's the idea that's going around. But we only have 2 seconds to prepare for eternity. And most people are spending those 2 seconds investing in the 2 seconds. And it really has to put things in perspective for us, because the way most people look at life is, if you serve God, you're going to be miserable. You have all these rules enforced on you. People are going to mock you and make fun of you for your beliefs. Whereas if you live for yourself, serve the world, you get to party all the time, have all sorts of fun, just do whatever you want to do, and you're the cool kid then. But when you really put it in perspective, When you're sitting in eternity, watching or maybe looking back on your life, and you're sitting in the 90 billion lifetimes and looking back at the 2 seconds, if you're in hell, you're going to look at those 2 seconds and say, I was an idiot to live for myself in those 2 seconds, because now I'm burning for 90 billion lifetimes. And then some. I mean, that's a limited number. Eternity just keeps on going. It doesn't stop at 90 billion. But you're going to look at that and think, what was I thinking? I could have been investing in a better eternity. And yet, here I am. Those 2 seconds weren't even worth it. You know, even if you have the best time of your entire life, you were like the most partyingest person ever, it still would not compare at all. And yet, from heaven, you're looking back at those same 2 seconds and say, man, I suffered the most. Or, I gave my life. I went without food many days. I was beaten for the gospel, for my testimony. I was ridiculed. I was put in prison. You know, that's sort of an extreme scenario, but when you look from heaven, when you're looking back from those 90 billion lifetimes, you're thinking, man, that was nothing. I mean, I could have endured more suffering. I mean, you could have just laid it on me. That was nothing. Romans 8:18 says, For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us. Paul was writing that he understood what life was like in the shadow of eternity. When you're really looking at that scope of things, we ought not to be ashamed at all of what we do in this lifetime. We ought not to get so hung up on creature comforts in this lifetime, because when we get to eternity, we're going to look back and laugh at how good we had it when we thought we were suffering. So let's take this as a lesson. We've only got 2 seconds to invest in an eternity. Let's invest it in that. I mean, really, let's just give our lives to Christ. Let's commit to bringing others into the kingdom, to living for God every second of every day. Because when we get over on the other side, whether you're in heaven or hell, you're going to look back, and those seconds will mean nothing compared to the eternity. Whether it was 2 seconds of joy in an eternity of hell, or 2 seconds of suffering for the gospel and an eternity of paradise. Now, just so you don't think, so I give you the wrong idea, living for God is not all boring, ridicule, and bad times. God gives us plenty of joy on this earth. You know, when you really get into God and you get following His will, it's not boring. It's not mundane. It's really something. God gives you that power and joy to live every day. He doesn't make it misery. He actually rewards these 2 seconds. But He's going to reward so much more in the time beyond. So, don't let anything stop you in sharing the gospel with people around you. Get out there. Think in terms of eternity. Because whatever you think you're suffering now, it's not even going to matter when you get over on the other side. So, surrender all to God. Give it your all. And just go out there and work for the kingdom. God bless.